I got a favor.
What up?
Next time you do a tutorial, can you use Logic? Because dudes don't mess with Pro Tools no more.
If I did a tutorial and I was using Studio One, do you think people would tune into it?
Studio One.
Do you think that's not popular enough?
They would, because it's you.
Well, yeah, but I mean, because the thing is I do want to actually adapt a new DAW. I'm sort of between Ableton and Studio One. I don't really want to pull in Logic. I've worked in Logic before. It's cool, but to me, it's not really much different than Pro Tools. I feel like it's just a different skin, and ultimately, it's more or less the same.
Basically.
Right.
Some
For the
different
record,
places.
I still prefer to mix in Pro Tools.
Yeah,
I think
serious engineers say that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would probably still mix ultimately in Pro Tools, but I'm finding that as an engineer, I'm starting to integrate a lot more production into what I'm doing, because it's not even like mixing's not really even exactly a thing anymore. Mixing is now like, I call it downstream producing. So it's like I'll mix the record in like an hour and a half, but then I'll spend another 3 hours putting in drops, transitions, adding an element in the third verse because the third verse sounds too similar to the first. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm not even mixing. I'm finishing the production.
So hold on though, but I would say
co-producer.
that's really based on hip hop stuff. That's not really applicable when you start to record it and mix live music, right? You know, for those live bands, because usually that one take, meaning if you're getting all of their signals in the bass and the keys, of course they can do post production for certain things that they didn't like, but when it comes to the live band, they're not doing all of the extra stuff. So pretty much you taking it in, and then you got to mix what they gave you in that performance, right?
Yeah, but there's very few genres that are really live band music anymore. And those genres, it's like real live band, I might as well mix to tape. I can record and mix the entire album in a day. So it's like, but for rock, for example, rock is about as live as hip hop is when it comes to the music. You know, it's not, none of it's played together. So it's, yeah, I am actually. I've added bass parts to rock songs, and so that's still going on. Yeah.
Wow. Yo, so
that's how rock died. It stopped being rock.
You think hip hop's going there?
Hip hop never ever died. Hip hop changes because the culture changes as people get older and younger people come in. The culture changes, so the sound of the music changes, but the actual lifestyle and the genre still very much alive and will continue to be very much alive. It will probably outlast everything else.
Do y'all think it's different? So like my man said something and it stuck with me. He said hip hop is the only fatherless genre. Meaning the generational split is so bad because there's no reverence for beforehand, because each generation doesn't bring the other one up. And then there's this disrespect for an older, whereas, like in rock and R&B, it's like, they still take from the greats. They still go back and listen to something before they were born. I wasn't around when, Michael Jackson's first album dropped, but I know the album, you know what I'm saying? Whereas with hip hop, it seems to not be that way, at least commercially anyway. Do y'all think there's some merit to that?
I think it depends on who you're attributing the older generation to, because I would say that what was popular in hip hop stopped being popular in hip hop, but there were still influences. The sound of today is more influenced by Akon and T.I. than it was ever influenced by Pac or Biggie. But that's because of who was being tuned into, not because of the roots or the importance. What the commercial mainstream is, that's never been the influencing factor.
So wait, are you saying that there's the perception of disconnect between the old and new generation? Is that the premise of what you're saying?
I mean, it seems so. It seems to be a disconnect.
I mean, I think there's more of a connection than there is not. I think that's just what is. it just make for a hot talking point. But really, if you ask me, who's behind the game, right? The young dudes, they ain't running it. It's the older generation that's pretty much, you know what I'm saying? That's giving them dudes a platform on some level, right? And I don't mean like I think when we're thinking of old generation, we're probably thinking of certain rappers supposed to bring out the next rapper, and but I think there's a lot of cats that we don't see them. They it seems like they vanished, but they're actually more involved behind the scene and putting some of these dudes on. I mean, because I'm seeing it myself, and yes, I think there's a disconnect in terms of we see certain young dudes that didn't get put on by so and so that used to be out back in the days, and we might, like, for example, perfect example, let's use Migos, right? We seen the whole them against Bone Thug and all that, and meanwhile they pretty much have similar style. I mean, I think that's just entertainment, because if we go back to that era, they were beefing with the so-called old school too, to some extent, right?
Facts.
When the 2000s and the late 90s rappers were somewhat beefy with the, let's just say, I don't want to be specific and say that there was a beef with KRS, but let's just say, dudes in the mid 90s, they were dissing them dudes as washed up and old school, right? And meanwhile, you have somebody like 50 Cent say that's his favorite rapper. You know what I'm saying? Or Rakim was his favorite rapper. So in reality, if you ask a lot of these young dudes rapping right now, they're gonna tell you who influenced them is in fact the so-called older dudes, right? So I think there is a connection because it evolved from the previous generation, but you'll always have a knucklehead or some, knucklehead kind of, talking point. You know what I'm saying? Saying, "Oh yeah, F these niggas up." But I don't really think the whole thing is disconnected. I personally been observing that there are more connections to it than there is not. You know what I mean?
Let me answer the question with a question. What city's putting out the most hip hop music that's going global right now?
What city?
That's going global?
City? Yeah, what city? What's the biggest city for hip hop right now? Atlanta. Exactly. New York used to be the biggest city for hip hop, right? But then somewhere around the early 2000s, that changed. Atlanta hip hop had already been happening. Down south hip hop had already been happening since the early 90s and late 80s. And it was popular there. It's just that if you were living in New York, you might not be hearing it.
Right.
Then when suddenly the Atlanta sound starts becoming more and more popular, suddenly now the rest of the world's becoming aware of it. But the people who started getting on were already influenced by the older generations of Atlanta hip hop.
Right.
And by the surrounding South.
Yeah.
So they are being influenced, but they're being influenced by people that we didn't hear.
Right. That's true. Because my friends in Houston always talk about the older generation in Houston. So I know definitely over there that's the case.
Yeah. No, but Gad, you was about to say something.
No, go. You good?
No. I was just saying I could, I got cousins down in Atlanta. We go down to Atlanta, and historically when you listen to you talk to certain dudes and they're like, yo, I ain't really listen to New York hip hop. I listen to, you know what I'm saying? I listen to Big Crit. I listen to this person. I listen to that person. And I'm like, that's what's up. You know what I mean? Because guess what? You don't have to listen. It's hip hop is hip hop. But I think when it comes to the culture, I think we have to differentiate the culture from the sound in the music. You know what I'm saying? Because let's just be real. We consider it all hip hop, but we can, it has to be labeled at some point, right? Some of it that is not hip hop, it's rap music. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm not hating on it or nothing, you know what I mean? Because of some South music I love it because it's all about feel, you know what I mean? But if I really, really want to, no disrespect, if I really want to, touch on certain things and meditate and think on certain things, that's not the music I'm going to pick up. Let's just be real. So and of course I'm not making a clean stroke right across to say no, all South music, there's no knowledge or no thought in it. No, that's not what I'm saying, but I'm just saying that sound, you know what I mean, the instruments that they're using, they're synthetic sounds, right? The core of what hip hop was live instrumentation being resampled, right?
Or re-performed.
Or
re-performed.
Exactly. Yeah. Or jack the whole thing. Don't even put drums on it. How about that?
Yeah.
Just loop it up, right?
Yeah. Because I was gonna say, that was only New York, but then Thinking about Cali, it was like that in Cali too. You know.
And good point, California. You just brought up a whole nother coast that we can't. They're like a staple in hip hop. And if you listen to the music that's coming out of California, there's a lot of hip hop coming out of California.
Yeah, it's a good thing that we brought up California, right? And we also mentioned Atlanta sound a moment ago. That's interesting. We're bringing up Cali back then and now, because the Atlanta sound, what is assumed to be Atlanta sound, is not really much Atlanta sound.
What you mean?
To be honest with you, because, and of course this could be debated and a lot of disagreement, all across the board, wherever. But a lot of the current sounds that actually came from Cali. Because the Bay Area, Drake influenced a lot of the new dudes. And Drake adapted a lot of the Bay Area sound to the point where dudes, the up-and-coming dudes, pretty much start to replicate that particular sound. And then you get the tight beats nowadays. It just reproduce. It's, whatever's hot. But really, once Drake and, that era came in, and a lot of the Houston and Bay Area sound was being borrowed, and that's really what the newer Atlanta dudes are doing a lot. A lot of the new stuff. You can't really say that it's Atlanta sound.
Well, that's,
you know what I'm saying? Because of where it evolved from. Of course, again, don't get me wrong. You can take anything and make it your own, at some point, right? And by adding your own stuff to it. Yeah, go ahead.
Does any of that even matter now? Because with the internet putting everybody in the same room, does anywhere have a sound right now?
That's a really, I was thinking that, where it's like, I think it's more about identity. How do you keep your identity? And in a place where, if I wanted to fly to where you guys are at, I could literally be there tomorrow. Like, it wouldn't be a problem because the price of tickets, cheaper than it used to be relatively.
Right.
The internet, look, we're on video chat on our phones. Like, we didn't even have phones in the 90s. You know what I mean? Like, the best you'd get is maybe you'd be able to call somebody in your car. That was some new shit.
Word. Fat J. I had that in the Acura.
Let me say this.
Man, you had that in the Acura. You're doing good in the 90s. Shit.
Let me say this. I don't think it matters in terms of being an artist, right? Because a lot of who we think are Atlanta artists aren't, right? So dudes are, like, for example, all of the New York dudes will sound like what is Atlanta, right? So it doesn't matter anymore. But on some level, in terms of understanding the history of it, right? It's because, for example, we bought Atlanta sound, right? So it matters in that kind of, in that context, knowing what's what and, what's being done where. It matters in that sense, but it doesn't matter in terms of, okay, being an artist. No. One of the new cats, I like him. Roddy Rich, right? Dude, you know what I'm saying? I love his music. It's hitting in Atlanta. I'm out here in Atlanta, right? He's from Compton. He's from Compton. He's not an Atlanta artist. You know what I'm saying? But that's what everybody see him as, right? Because of the so-called sound, right? So no, it doesn't matter at all.